And we're going to go right through the groups A through J, or however many of them there are. And, 3 minutes or so to give us your 3 consensus critical factors for Harper to focus on. And guys, here's what I'm going to attempt to do during the course of the next hour or so, is as we hear from these groups, and maybe you can help me here, because I'm going to try to cut, we've got 10 groups, 3 factors each. That, again, the math majors in the room know that's 30. And I want to get that down closer to 10. What I expect to happen is we'll hear redundancy between the groups. If it doesn't, we're going to let the factors take us to where we wind up. We're not going to be driven to my goal of 10. So if we wind up with 15, so be it. But I am going to try to narrow. Everything about this whole thing, if you've noticed, is go from global and national all the way down to narrow. So keep in mind, we're looking for redundancy, or we're looking for duplication. It is not a bad thing. So if you're towards the end of the alphabet and you see your things have been mirrored in other presentations, that's no problem. We still want to hear what your group had to say. Fair enough? Everybody cool? We're still having fun? Nobody's in an uncomfortable place? Great. Okay, Group A, where are you? Okay, you're going to take us through your presentation. Tell us the 3 consensus factors you guys came up with.
Well, we get the advantage of going first.
Wait a minute, we need a microphone for you.
We get the.
By the way, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot to say something. We're going to be recording these. So, put your camera faces on and do your hair or whatever. But no, so that we have a record of it as we go forward from the conference, that's all.
So it looks like many of these are very similar, but all 3 of our themes kept student success in mind, because if you don't have your final destination of success in mind, none of these have true meaning. So we focused on pathways with student destinations in mind, but those pathways include K through 12 to make a seamless transition to community college, and then either to the workforce or to a 4-year institution and then to the workforce. So not just stopping at a 4-year transfer destination, but continuing to move through those pathways. We looked at the adult population and how we could better market our services to them. Their pathway with employment as a final destination, in combining competency-based education with hybrid deliveries, with face-to-face deliveries, so that they had options, so that they could be successful with their work and family obligations. And then we looked at leveraging the classroom. So let me get this right. Part of leveraging the classroom was faculty-led, and I have to cheat, faculty-led, intentionally driven faculty development. So for full-time faculty and adjunct faculty, so that the faculty development was focused on particular things that needed attention campus-wide. We looked at giving students a consistent experience, so no matter what section of a class they were in, how the delivery method was, who was teaching it, that their learning experience would be very similar and they could achieve their outcomes. And finally, we looked at faculty and students both having a growth mindset.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Group A. Get small hand for Group A? Yeah. B comes next. We'll just pass the microphones off. That's great. Thanks, guys.
Well, we have about 10 pages that supports these. But again, our theme is student success, and we define that in 3 ways. One is moving toward a profession, a career, a job to support oneself and family, or transfer toward those same goals, but more importantly, personal growth throughout all of these objectives, whatever the student's vision of their desire would be. Number 1 is creating a culture of commitment to student success. Without that, without everyone from the custodian to the board member really committed to it, we won't maybe transform things the way we would like them to be. Creating clear pathways for students and student engagement. So all of these are intertwined, and we had a very robust discussion about how many of the things we discussed from engaging faculty and equipping them to improve teaching and learning, the clear pathways in terms of advising and how we do that, student engagement throughout all that we do, from the classroom to advising through their interaction to the campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Group B. Nice job. Group C.
Okay, we're Group C. I think this is us. Our three core ideas begin and end with the culture of student-centered approachability. So I'm going to tell the story beginning with pathways. If pathways are a good idea, then what we need to do is, first of all, to identify these highways. The second thing, using the highway metaphor, would be to identify the on-ramps and the exit ramps. So it might be the case that you need some work to get up to speed, and then if you want to sort of peel off and come back later, you need to know where to get off the highway. But if the highway is made of seams of concrete, right, little blocks of concrete, the highway is only as good as those blocks of concrete, and those are the classes. And so we moved into discussing, I'm going to jump down to number 3, learning outcomes. And the idea here was to get clear across the college regarding not just what, let's call them the gen ed outcomes are, which we have done, but more importantly, what it would mean for a student to have achieved those outcomes. And that might look different in an English department or an art department or a philosophy department or a chemistry department. But if they are truly gen ed outcomes, then we ought to be able to recognize their achievement in a common way. So we think that that common institutional conversation ought to be had. Now, if we're going to achieve learning outcomes, we have to have good instructors, and so we arrived then at professional development. And we tiered professional development in 3 ways. One is general pedagogy, like the Academy for Teaching Excellence, with an emphasis on relevant use of technology in the classroom. Second, discipline-specific pedagogical developments, say in philosophy. And third, and I think this is where our group is innovative, I'm going to call it cultural competency. But what we've come to mean by that is we think it's worth having a conversation about how local community leaders and industries could professionally develop faculty with respect to the realities of local businesses and industries for the purposes of informing classroom activities and assignments and object lessons. And that way we can show students what careers look like, what goes on a day-to-day basis down the street, Motorola, for example. And so that's the 3 things that we discussed. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Just an observation, guys, and it exemplifies why we're recording this. So a number of you, but I'll use that last example, which was a really cool idea about connecting to employer partnerships to help in professional development of the instructor. You know, getting some of that tacit knowledge into the classroom, and that's a great idea. As I'm starting to conflate these issues, it's about professional development. That last item, which was awesome, is a strategy to support the critical factor. Are you with me? So that's why we want this stuff recorded. We want to make sure these ideas flow back. We're on, I think, D.
We are on D. I'm representing D. We were small, but we were mighty. So we came up with what we thought were some good ideas. Obviously, you always want to have an end goal in mind. What are you trying to achieve? So we talked about that because that was critical, we thought, to come up with what are the tactics would need to be. So for us, as we defined it, our overarching goal is to maximize the amount of students who finish their studies to earn a living wage, particularly given the change in demographics that we're witnessing, in the most efficient, basis as possible. So that was our end game, that was our goal. So what are the 3 items that we felt could get us there in the quickest and most efficient way? Well, we're seeing some consistency here, that's for sure, but the first one, of course, was pathways. We heard about that over the last couple of days, and that's all about making this simpler, easy to understand from our students, not to let them get waylaid, but to be able to understand how do we get through this as quickly as possible and with the highest chance of success. The second one, leveraging technology, which I've seen in some other ones as well. Lots of reasons, of course, to do that. First of all is our clients, our customers, our students. They expect us to use that. They're using it now. If we were not to use that, obviously we would be out of touch, so they expect it. Second, it leverages our existing resources, so it's less expensive, it's more efficient, it's a good way to use what we already have. And it is easier, of course, for our clients to learn when they want to learn it and where they want to learn the information, along with many other reasons. But we felt that that was very important. And then our third and final was revamp student services. Now, of course, these tend to blend together. So, for example, one of the ways in revamping the services is the advising model. For us to be able to make sure that we're doing that, I would love to have a face-to-face, but there's limited resources, so how do we use our technology to be able to change how we advise into the pathway model? So that's part of it. We've got prior learning assessment, and of course the continued use of technology. So these are the 3 things that we had. And then most important, we wanted to make sure that once it was decided that these were the items or whatever collectively we decide, that we then bring it to scale. I understand there's been many experiments, many projects that have been working at Harper, but that we want to make sure that we then maximize what we feel is most effective and to bring it to scale as soon as we can. And that's D.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome, Group D. Thank you very much. Group E.
All right, I'm going to make this quick. I think we approached it a little bit different from some of the people that I've heard, because I think we approached it more from a, I don't want to say product perspective, but that really was what was the point. What we're trying to accomplish is to get the best product, which is student success. We're going to get the best student that anybody can make, specifically Harper can make. We picked these enablers along the side so that you'd be able to pull those out. Technology, data, and international are things that permeate every aspect of what we got here. This has to be in everything, and if it's not, you won't succeed in any of them. The first thing you have to do is understand the market. Our market is adults, it's language, non-language speakers, just all of the diverse communities. We get direct assessments and involvement of the students and communication with our partners so that we understand what they need. Because if you don't understand them, there's really no point in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And we move to responding to what we heard. We respond with student engagement, career pathways. And then career pathways was a very critical part of what we were working on. And we had some pretty robust conversations about it because we had a student in ours, and he had some very specific ideas. And I think he talked a lot about their empowerment and the change in the dynamic of the student being more empowered than they've ever been. And we need that, because without that feedback, we can't get to the understanding so that we can get to the responding. And then the third piece of the block was collaboration. We have to have that collaboration with all of the elements of the community, the service learning, the political side. Everybody has to be part of this solution in order for the solution to work.
Very well done. Thank you. Really well done. Group F.
All right, we have a lot of things that other people have been talking about. So the pathways to completion, obviously, we've all been concerned with that. Just making things clearer. How do we get from point A to point B, well, point Z, with all the stops in between? We also focused on populations with unique needs.
Awesome.
So this includes African Americans, Latino students, immigrant, first generation, adults, veterans. We talked a lot of the difficulties these various groups encounter and how they each need to be addressed in unique ways, and to develop the universal programs that will help all of them succeed, but also speak to and address their unique needs. We talked a lot about adults and giving credit for previous work experience, and making it easier to come in and kind of pass through the gen eds more easily, especially if you've been working for a long time, and the veteran needs. So there are addressing all of those unique groups that we're not serving as effectively as we could. And finally, we talked about student support and how that can occur through a variety of different means. So the classroom, we have perhaps having advisors come in once or twice a semester to speak to students, but then also professional development training, and making sure there are common outcomes, and all those sorts of things. Making sure we have the advisors working with the students, and making sure students are taking advantage of all of the various support systems that we offer, and using technology as well to facilitate that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, as you hand off to the next group, just bear with me a minute. Pause button just for a second. I mentioned as we learn all this and hear all this, what we want to do is not so much distill as eliminate duplication so that we're not dealing with 30 critical factors. So I want to share with you the list I have thus far. These are mine. You may write them down because I would like you to help me fix this as we move forward to the end. Just giving you a sense of what I've heard. Remember, my ears are what? The least important ears in the room. So you're going to help me with this. This is what I've heard thus far. We're not going to do it now. We're going to do it after the rest of our reports. I'm hearing pathways. I'm hearing commitment to student success. And in that implied, like as students define it, which means success could be transfer, success could be a job, success a credential. I'm hearing adult populations. I'm hearing learning outcomes focus. I'm hearing a focus on quality instruction, and I put in there professional development, i.e. technology in the classroom and other things. I'm hearing the focus on student supports and revamping student services. I heard technology beyond technology in the classroom, meaning technology in the administration and support of the institution. I heard bring things to scale. Don't just do little pilots, but make it real. I heard understand our market. I heard a critical focus on collaboration and partnership. And I heard populations with unique needs. Those are the things I'm hearing. I think that can be even distilled down. For instance, already in this, I'm seeing a focus on adult populations in one hand, and then another focus on population with unique needs. In fact, that may be the same thing. You'll decide. So I'm up to 11 or 12 things now. So we need to keep looking at the filter, okay? Questions about where I'm at? Remember, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'd like to know where you're at. So here's my starting point, and we'll refine it later. Thanks for the interruption. You're up.
Okay, what he said. So we started first working on the definition of success and changing that to outcome as opposed to performance. Pathways, again, we've heard that time and time again. Reducing choice is part of that. The pathway, obviously, starting K through 12 through Harper and then going on to either a four-year institution or the workplace. And the importance of a balance, and it was explained to me that I drew the triangle incorrectly. I should have put it point down so that we could see how difficult it is to balance the three sides. But the three sides would be the employer, the student, and then the faculty and administration. So that was our first key point. The second was to get more engagement with the student population. I think there's a pilot program for Starfish going on right now in the college. Expanding that, having the faculty more involved in the process so that they could intervene a little bit earlier and have some follow-through with how the students are doing after they leave the class. But empowerment, I think, is the key word there. And then the third point was responsive scheduling and programming, and this is responsive to the needs of the student as well as whatever the pathway is, and we really liked the computerized scheduling idea.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Group G.
We're Group H, and we don't have anything that you haven't already heard
That's
before.
okay.
But I'll
That's
give
okay.
you a little bit of our spin and emphasis on things. First, we talked about pathways, as everyone else, and we see Harper's determined pathway as being transitions from where students come to us and where students are going. So we combined pathways with partnerships because we felt it was really, in order to establish our pathways, it was really important to have partnerships both with K through 12, universities, and businesses where our students will be working. And we also need to be sure that our students understand their own pathway. Whichever pathway they select, they have to understand it and they have to own it and feel good about it. So we have to help them with that. Our second item was equity. Equity in closing achievement gaps for all the different groups of our students, and we thought we should look at scaling some of our successful projects that maybe are just addressing a few students. If they're successful, let's scale them up and try to address more students. And we spoke specifically about our Starfish, our early alert system, and an interest in scaling that up. And lastly, we talked about an intentional focus on teaching and learning, but we kind of uniquely linked data to that item. We think that we have a lot of really good data at the institution, and we need to more intentionally provide opportunities in professional development, linking that data to discussions among faculty about what that data means and how it plays out in their classroom. So we were talking about taking our professional development and giving opportunities for faculty to see data, understand data, talk about data, and react to the data within the teaching and learning session in conjunction with our next strategic goals.
Awesome. Well done. Thank you, H. Nice spin. I like that. Okay, Group I.
Group I, Group Incredible.
Yeah.
Start with that. Two of the items I think have been covered pretty well already. We started with pathways, as did most of the groups, and we extended that as the last group mentioned. So the pathways included alignment with K through 12, 4-year and career. So it's not just a Harper pathway, but it's a full pathway throughout. Looking at traditional, non-traditional students. We also included the idea of the personal pathway and the students understanding the pathway they're on and engaging with that. Also, employer engagement as part of that. I'm going to drop down to the student success part. That encompasses the completion, career and transfer, that, what a student is looking for in terms of completion. Student engagement, multimodal learning, the different presentation methods, the technology behind that, teaching and learning, and closing the achievement gaps we included as part of the student success. Where our group went a little bit different on this last one is what we titled institutional diversity as a big container for employee diversity issues that have been talked about in the past, cultural diversity, but a cross-training and integration, leadership diversity, no silos. How do we get broader understanding across the institution for everyone involved? Administrators, staff, faculty, ultimately students if you have integration within your curriculum. And then student diversities, which addresses the adult market and things like that.
Well done.
The end.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. And who are we? Where are we, Jay? This is our last.
Last but not
The
least,
last group. Okay.
and we are the rebels. As you can see, we're not on the proper form. And I'm going to be a rebel and actually start with our bottom, because we were supposed to come up with 3 factors to plan for the continuation of the new strategic plan. And I feel that what's listed last is really where you need to start to make a difference. We all have wish lists, and they all cost money. And if we don't take a look at everything that Harper does is good. What we have to do is take a look at all of those courses, services, programs, and decide which ones are the best and which ones are going to help our diverse student body. And that's a big leap. That's not easy to do. And we had Dr. Ender in our group. In doing that, it's a process that, you know, there's going to be people that are going to feel left out, but we're reallocating resources, and it's a difficult process to go through, but it's probably something that we need to take a look at. And going through this decision-making process here, we felt that Pathways was actually a 3-pronged program that we had to look at. Not only looking at the courses and deciding which ones are important, making sure that the students had proper onboarding, but don't stop there. Use processes that we have like Starfish and that to make sure that we're constantly communicating with the student through the process so that we retain those students and they can finish. And then I was also brought up in a couple of other groups how important it is to include our partners in that pathway. Technology is in almost everybody's group, and it's not only using technology to the maximum, both online and our classroom. We have a lot of data, and I think it was Judy that mentioned there's so much data out there that can really be crucial in making decisions for all involved. But we have to do a good job of making sure it gets communicated to everybody so that they can use that data to do a better job.
Awesome. Great job. All right. Now's when we go to work. How do you take all of that? Did we get every group? Yeah. How do you take all of this and distill it down to a manageable but representative, I should say, representative but manageable, because it's really more important that we don't slice content. But, you know, dedupe this list for me. Where do you want to start? What's the first thing? You know, I gave you where I was midpoint. I don't want to give you where I am now because who am I? There you go. Right. So tell me where you are. What should be on the list for sure up front? What jumps out from all the presentation? Pathways is on my list. It's on yours. Okay? So Pathways. What else? Can you guys see? Am I blocking? I'm going to move over here. Technology. Technology appears a couple different ways as I'm listening to things. You help me with this. I heard technology from the standpoint of multimodal learning, which was an intentional thingy. And then I heard technology from the perspective of using it to become more productive. In other words, improve our reach without having to, be more efficient. Does that make sense? So I've still got that kind of split in my head, but technology is clearly there. Everybody with us? Anybody that, yeah, go right ahead.
Technology to collect and help analyze the data.
Right, I think that's what I meant to say. You said it better than I did, yeah. Yeah, to extend us and to give us the information we need to make good decisions, right? As opposed to extend the instructional methods, right? Gotcha.
Communication, not just gather the data, but communicate.
But all of the above, agreed. Yeah.
I teach technology, and I want to be the first to say that technology is a means to an end. It's not the end.
Yeah.
So it is a supporting factor for all of the ideas we're going to come up
with, and I don't think we can avoid having that technology, but I'd hate to see it as a key direction for us. Our direction isn't technology. Our direction is the solutions.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm hearing you. Oh, interesting point. So you say that as regards using technology to collect big data, make decisions. You don't say that, let me guess, I don't want to put words in your mouth, as a regards using technology to extend our instructional strategy.
No, it could be that too.
Okay.
But our goal is student success and student engagement. It's not technology to make that happen.
So does technology belong on the short list or not? Oh, wait a minute. Yes or no?
It's a supporting tool at the bottom of the list.
Okay, so you want to drop it from the list? Go ahead. Could be a sub point. Okay. So far, I think I'm with. Oh, all the way over there. Go ahead. Say it loud because we can't get a mic around fast enough. We're going to run these poor people to death. Go ahead.
To support what Dave is saying, our group had actually come up with a separate category called enablers of the strategic plan. And we had put technology there as an enabler. We also put data there as an enabler. We also put processes like internationalization as an enabler, because these were cross-cutting, but they're not the actual goal, what we're trying to do.
Okay, good. I think I understand now. So what else belongs on the list? So far I got pathways. I got technology as an enabler, like it. What else is on the list? Say it. Student success, you mean by that? Defining success for?
Well, you have different populations of people you're serving. So success for a high school kid is different than success for an adult.
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Would that be defining where the pathway ends for that student at Harper College?
Okay, so Pathways has already made the list, agreed. Another thing that came out everywhere, and we have a different spin on it, but it's ultimately, is student success. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Student success belongs on the list? Help me. That's the goal. It's the wildly important goal. So it's a critical factor that belongs on the list. Are you with me or not? Okay. I'm not depriving you from talking. Okay, just to be clear.
It shouldn't
not
be
get
on
tested.
the list.
Okay, go ahead.
It should be on top of the list.
It should be on top of the list.
Everything else goes under.
There it is. This group says we got you covered. We had this 20 minutes ago. Okay, pathways, student success. What else? No, not student success. Student engagement, but not student success. You have something to say?
Student success is the...
Not yet. 10,604. I don't know.
I think.
Go ahead.
Throughout this, the presentations, there's been different variations of thinking about segments of students.
Right.
So, we could think about one of the themes would be really understanding the student populations that we serve.
That was mentioned.
And that would potentially begin to help us disaggregate the types of services we provide. So adults might, as a group, be different than the first-time college right out of high school. So there's been a lot of talk about populations, certainly issues around equity and achievement gaps.
Yep.
I mean, all those lead to thoughts about what are the different populations that we want to focus on. We may decide we can't eat the whole apple.
Right.
You know, there might be some populations that we say, well, be great, but, you know, we just don't have the resources that we need to put the resource. That requires choice, and I think we've got to put that on the table.
Okay, so from your perspective, it's kind of like understanding the different populations. I think it gets back to your point. Once you understand, you can define what success is, and then you can prioritize from that. And to their point, I think student success kind of is the umbrella under which all of this gets listened to. You wanted to chime in. Go.
Well, Dr. Under took my idea, actually.
But you know what? He's been copying other people's homework for years.
But I do think it's a very important issue to raise, and some people have phrased it as, you know, understanding the market, where others are talking more about equity and achievement gaps. But I think it's important that some strategies help all students, and some targeted strategies help specific groups where we're not meeting their needs, and we didn't meet their needs the last time, but we have to keep trying. So I think we have to have that on the list. That's my opinion.
Okay, so let me be clear, and I need some empathy here, because we started out ahead of schedule. We're quickly going to catch up to that, right? Because I call this process herding cats. You know, it's going to be very difficult with 100 cats in the room. So you got to help me. I have pathways on the top of the list. I now have understanding the markets we serve or the customers we serve. Is that the second thing on the list? Can we get something like consensus on that? Yeah. Student success it has been made clear to me belongs as the umbrella over things as opposed to part of the list. You with me? Okay. So that's the second thing. What's next on the list?
How about?
Where are you?
How about bringing a scale? Bringing
our successes to scale.
Right. Bring our strategies to scale. Whatever the pathways, intrusive counseling, whatever the best strategies we come up with. We've been percolating this for 5 years, bringing those to scale.
What do you think, group? It's a how.
It supports creating a culture of commitment, though.
So you nominate creating a culture of commitment.
That's what we do.
A lot of things fall under that.
Just to point out, this is a B member that's,
It's a B member? All right. So a culture of commitment has been nominated. Let me tell you something. With a bunch of academics, this is just going to be difficult. It does. Let me help you. We can't hear her. Restate it. The mic is here. We need to get it in. Go ahead. No, people are telling me they couldn't hear you.
There are a lot of factors that fall under creating a culture of commitment. It's, for example, understanding the populations. As more people understand the populations, there's more likelihood of being committed to the ultimate goal, which is student success. We defined as finding a job, personal growth and enrichment, or transferring your education. So we try to look at the broad categories. With all of these things, we feel can fall under those categories.
Okay. Did you all hear her? Yeah, and she's spot on. I agree. But let me try to correct our path just for a minute, if I could. This comes under the heading of negotiating with a room full of cats, just in case you're filing it for future use. Remember what the outcome we need from this activity is. We need a list that looks like this. Our job is not to write the strategic plan. We are not trying to wordsmith strategic goals and strategies. We're only coming up with a list of priorities that need to make it in our discussions this afternoon and beyond. So if we, as 100 of us, try to regroup everything and reauthor it in the way that it's going to be in a final document, we're going to be here for a while. Are you with me on that? Am I making sense? So let me, again, return to a list. Listen to the list. These are all off of your documents, and tell me what you think, in addition to what we've said thus far, which is understanding our market and pathways, belongs as a critical factor. We don't have to regroup it. We're just putting a list of these factors down. Am I making sense, and are you with me? Okay, so pathways, commitment to student success, we've talked that through. Adult populations was on your list. Learning outcomes, I think I heard somebody say data-driven, using data to define that. Learning outcomes, using multimodal instruction, revamping student services, technology to be more efficient, we've discussed that. Bring it to scale was on this list. Understanding our market, we've already validated that one, we can scratch that one, it's on there. Collaboration and partnership, populations with unique needs, and another group said equity. In my mind, I put those together. It may or may not work for you. Employer engagement, multimodal learning I've talked about, and priority on resources, which came out of one group and hadn't been everywhere else, so I put it on the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's like 12 things on that list. I want to make sure we're not cutting anything, but I'm not trying to wordsmith the strategic plan here. I'm going to come to you in a moment, but we've got somebody out there that's been in queue.
I think we should add targeted professional development.
I take it back. It was in here, and I didn't say it, so I agree. It's absolutely on the list.
Closing the achievement gaps.
Closing the achievement gaps. Okay. Yes.
In terms of scale, feeding on what Trustee Kelly said, I think, and we learned about this yesterday, that happens in the classroom. So I don't know if we connect that to professional development, but how do we use the classroom to bring things to scale? And I don't know how to make that succinct, but I think that's been a theme we've heard over the last couple of days too.
Okay. So what I'm trying to do is distill this list. Help me get there. How are we going to do that? Unless you want to bring all these flip charts into your room in the afternoon. Yes?
So you don't like leveraging the classroom? Is that what you're
No, I'm not saying that at all. No, I'm just trying to help us get to a point where we can take the activities that happened and bring it to the rest of the work in the afternoon. No, I'm not saying that at all. I like all of it.
You need to separate objectives from strategy. So student success is an objective, technology is a strategy, right? So you need to pare down. So you need to pare down and start with the objectives that you're trying to do, and then. So if leveraging the classroom is a strategy, not an objective, or the other way around, right? So you need to refine the list and then determine the strategies you're going to use to meet the objectives.
And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do here, and that was what I was trying to point out, right? Is that we got to be careful and remember what we're doing. What you're trying to do here is to say, of all the things you've heard over the last 24 hours, what are the critical factors you heard that need to drive the rest of the activity that you're in here? Right now, you have 30 of them. I am, to your point, madam, not trying to put an editorial value on any of them. I'm only trying to eliminate redundancy in them. So that is our only goal. Our goal is not to value any of these statements. It's just to condense them so that all of them are represented. Our goal is not to rewrite them into a final plan.
I do apologize. We have these all typed up, and for some reason we can't. The software.
Yeah, I was trying to get them on the wall.
So we can actually see a list. So we could see a list and work on it together. So why don't we go back through the list that's been suggested so far, write it down, and then see what changes we'd want to make from there. It's hard to have this conversation if you can't see
Right, exactly.
what we're doing. So I apologize for that. They're working on the.
So did somebody write them down?
Okay, so yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
How many are we looking for? Are we just looking for like the top 5?
You know, our goal, we started with 30. I said at the beginning, if we could get it to 10, but remember the criteria. We're not trying to eliminate anything, we're just eliminating duplication.
Okay. Rick,
So if we came to 10, that'd be great. If it winds up being 15, then it's so far. As long as we're representing the thoughts that people came up with. Okay, wait a minute. Let's start here.
Jump here a second. So pathways, just go down your list.
So, okay, you want to put all this stuff on there? Okay, we can
Well,
do
we
it.
can cross them out later, but at least we'll all
Well,
know.
what I would like to, we could start with is, why don't we recap what the group has said thus far? They've said understanding the market and pathways is on the list. Agreed? Yeah. So, I mean, I can give you the rest of them, and I will in a minute, but who had their hand up? You can get in. Go ahead.
Okay, I wouldn't combine pathways with understanding the market, but that's something else. But in terms of consolidating, understanding the market, the adult population, and special populations, to me, is one area.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's essentially the same thing.
So that was 3 things down to 1. You're welcome.
Hey, look, I think it's great. I love it. So, in other words, you're saying understanding your market takes care of those other things. We don't need to say it 3 times. We good so far? All right? Yes, sir.
I guess to clarify that a little bit, I wanted to use globalization separate from those 3 applications, because globalization to me is an external service/market versus those being specific markets to that we have local.
Okay, but help me here. What critical success factor from this list does that fit? Globalization is a big word, right?
I think we were the only ones that use globalization.
So it is on your report. Okay.
It's down there in the little writing at the bottom.
It is here. And that's collaboration. He thinks globalization is one of the items on the list. Okay, so okay, she's going to make a list of enablers. Hold on. I think we had this woman in queue, and then I'll come over to you. Yes,
So
sir.
we combined the pathways and the partnerships because the partnerships are going to inform our pathways. So I think the partnership should be with pathways.
Okay. Pathways/partnerships is the nominated version of that. You with me? We're going to stay in the order so I don't make these microphone people run crazy. We're coming to you. Yeah.
And I hate to do this, but you got to follow the money. So there does have to be the factor has to be included with how do we allocate limited resources and the pressure that's on those resources.
Okay, so I had that written down as priorities of prioritizing resources. Prioritizing resources. And that was on the list and from one of the groups, I don't recall. So why don't we take this approach, as long as we're not reinventing what the group said, and if it was said and it's being nominated, we'll put it on the list, and then if there's anything we strike, we'll strike it. Fair enough? Remember, we're trying to represent this and only dedupe it. That's the goal. Yes, ma'am.
I agree that pathways and partnerships, from the point of view of defining potential pathways that students can choose to follow. But I feel that a very important strategic goal is to create clear pathways and get students to know their pathway in their first semester. That's different than creating the pathway. It's engaging the student in determining their pathway early in their career so they don't waste time.
Okay.
So I think they're a little different.
Okay, it is. And that's kind of the conversation you guys are going to have in the afternoon. So let's just agree so that we don't have to have that conversation now, that pathways and partnerships are both on this list. And when you go into your work session, you'll decide whether you combine them or you don't. Fair enough? Okay, I don't know who I had in queue. I think it was this lady, and then I'll come to you.
I just had a quick question, and I'm wondering if understanding the market would be the same as closing achievement gaps, because they seem like kind of different things, but they're dealing with the same populations.
I don't know what to tell the girl. I'm inclined to believe that closing the achievement gaps is his own statement.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I think it was said a lot here, so let's put it up there. And again, as a last step here, if there's something up there that you don't think represents the groups, we'll strike it. But at least we're getting to a list, thanks to Sheila. Good? You all good? Okay, where are you
I just
now?
wanted to add something to what Diane had said, and that is, we made a distinction between the structure of the pathway, so having a pathway, that's the structure, and the process of student engagement and creating those pathways. So we made that distinction. Whether it's important to make the distinction over there, I'm not certain, but.
First semester pathway engagement, talking about a process, and this is actually the development of and developing with partners as they're developed.
So, yeah, okay, we got it, good. What else? We have this gentleman over here, and we have somebody over here who already has a mic, so you stay in queue, and we'll come to you, and we'll go over here.
So I'm going to go back to the leveraging the classroom, because I think that encompasses, if we had some intentional required faculty development around these decisions that we make here, and that will then address the achievement gaps, and if we have some intentional faculty development on what works and what doesn't work in the classroom, because as we're getting students into those classrooms and so on, it's got to, like I said, every faculty member interacts with these students every day. And so if we don't have some faculty development surrounding this, the goals aren't going to be met.
Good, good. Yes, Ken. And then we're going to go, this fellow's
I just want to say amen to that. I think that I like what Bill Kelly said about scale. And to me, a lot of what we want to do can happen at scale if we focus on the folks who stand in front of students every day. It also can help us enormously with issues of equity and achievement gaps. But we may have to take on some tough topics with our teaching faculty. Not tough, and it's just hard work, to do this. It seems to me that the more we can take something like early alert to scale for every student, achievement gaps are going to be a little bit more eroded. So I don't want us to lose track of this issue of scale with these themes that we're putting up there.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And again, and very timely comment, but again, our goal is to get these conversations like the one you just started into our afternoon session. This is just the list that brings us there. Fair enough? Everybody clear? So we do have, what was the comment about classroom? Leverage the classroom and scale up there? And yes, sir, thank you for being patient.
Competency-based learning
Yeah.
was through a lot of them, so just to bring that into the afternoon.
Let's bring it into the discussion, and the groups will decide where to go with it, but it clearly came out of our work. Anybody else? Yeah, what are we missing? Go
Just
ahead.
real quick on this leveraging the classroom, I'm great with that, but I want to make sure we understand the classroom doesn't have to have walls in order to leverage it.
Everybody's with you. I see a lot of people nodding. Okay, how are we doing? Are we missing things? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question because I can't see that part.
Okay.
So the one that says understanding market, I just want to be sure that that also includes student unique populations, the language.
It's also special populations or
unique. I just want to make sure that.
So, yeah, on the.
Market, I don't necessarily think equal. I want to be sure we're all having the same conversation.
Yeah, and in that, and again, we don't have to, our only goal is to make sure the right factors get into your discussions, right? We're going to do a lot more work with this. And I hear you. And in fact, another thing that came out of our reports, and I think it's related to your point, is equity, right? And I think we're saying all those things are embedded in that statement of understanding your market to be clear so that they don't get dropped off the table. They're important. And they did come out of the report outs. How are we doing? What are we missing? Anybody? Oh, I'm sorry, over here. Yeah. Do we have a mic for you? Speak into my tie. All right. Hold on. Oh, wait. Mag's coming one. You don't have to speak into my.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on a number of things here. First of all, this is very interesting. Listening to all you guys talk and just hearing. I've just been sitting back and I'm amazed by how committed you are to us as students. So thank you. Secondly, what I wanted to state is, and I'm gonna walk over here if that's okay.
Absolutely. I wouldn't presume to get in your way.
Thanks. Well, something that I kind of looked at here, and I'm just kind of being a little biased. This is the board that we kind of looked at, but I believe that collaboration is a really important part of us moving forward. You know, a lot of the things that I'm seeing over here on this list have to do with things that are going on in the classroom besides understanding the community. So how are we working with community leaders that already have influence over these students, that already understand what's going on? There were these people specifically in the Hispanic and the African American communities. How are we working with those people, or how can we work with those people to make sure that, you know, the students we're going to teach, we can have something that relates to them, that speaks to them? You know, and so I think that collaborating and understanding, you know, what's going on in the community and how we can develop more just beyond the classroom, beyond those environments, can really help us shape some things. So that's something I was kind of looking at. But I hear, from what I'm hearing and what I'm gathering, is a lot of this has to do with what's going on in the classroom. And while that's important, another point that I want to add to that is student success. We see student success as something that we're, you know, the outcome and the goal. However, do we know what students consider to be success? Mm-hmm. So I think we need to evaluate what students consider to be success coming into college, and then say, well, wait a minute, let's see if you're right, assess that, and then if you're not right about it, let's help to redefine that for you.
Well said.
Thank you.
I don't know if this needs to be added, but I want to, and we've talked about student engagement and student services, and there's been onboarding. I guess one of the things I'm thinking strategically is should we not identify a set of core basic services that we could say every student at Harper got, whether it's assessment of interests, first semester schedule, a plan, and then depending on the population, you take your basic core services and add Delta 1 for veterans, or Delta 2 for at-risk students, or Delta 3 for
adults,
or whatever it might be. I don't think anybody could give you that list today, but the value proposition that we might be able to publicly make is, if you come with us, if you come to learn with us, this is the basic that you're going to get, and you can't hide from it. We're going to catch you, we're going to get you, we're going to corral you, and then we're going to take our scarce resources and really target the special population needs. I don't know if it's up there, but it certainly, as I've listened to what we're saying and trying to think about resources and how we allocate them, those two themes emerged for me.
I mean, yesterday, I'm trying to remember, was it Dr. Grismer? I don't know where this came from. Maybe it was Jim Applegate. They're all running together in my head. There was a lot of conversation about what's your value proposition? How do you distinguish Harper from other folks? So, you know, Ken, you just actually drilled way down, and one way you could do that. But the whole idea of creating that value proposition for your marketplace is something that maybe needs to be up there if the group concurs. I mean, that wasn't otherwise said. So I want to make sure if it needs to be there, that we get it there. What do you think? Yes?
Yeah, I've heard shades of it, right? So we've talked about, it's come up, I think, in a few ways. Kathleen spoke to it, someone over here spoke to it in terms of what can we make that universal student experience, and I would maybe call it that, right? Student experience, I wouldn't limit it necessarily to support services, but again, where these things happen. But what do we do as a universal student experience that every student is guaranteed they will get? And then how do we attend to these special populations that we know have additional needs that go above and beyond that universal experience? And so how can we align our resources there for achievement gaps, equity, et cetera, for those individuals? So I think it has come up in many different ways, maybe just not wrapped with the wrapper that Dr. Ender just gave it.
Okay, awesome. We're good? It's on the wall? Excellent. Who was queued up? Somebody else was?
I am.
Yes.
Just what Joe said really resonated for me, and it aligns with what we heard last Friday at the faculty development, at the faculty retreat around culturally relevant pedagogy, and just thinking about, oh God, there's a guy with a camera. Thinking about, I don't even want to talk, I don't have a picture. Thinking about what this notion of bridging these achievement gaps.
Yeah.
I'm struck by the language, and I know we're not refining language, but I just want to
That's
offer
okay.
this
Go
for our
for it.
consideration.
Yeah.
Thinking about the idea of understanding groups or markets, I just want to invite us to move beyond language of understanding to valuing and to thinking about, to Joe's point, that we also invite some, he talked about collaboration with the community, but what our speaker last week talked about ways in which he took faculty into communities to really understand the communities. And I think sometimes as we begin to work with new populations and new markets, we don't always know those communities and markets and where our students are coming from. And so I think there's some opportunity for us to step outside of our comfort zones in some ways and really get to know the new populations and the changing communities in ways that are relevant to those populations, and to hear our populations in different ways. And so I think that sometimes we begin designing based upon what we think populations need, and we can miss the mark. And I think for Harper to be what we aspire to be for our communities requires us to do something differently. And I hear sometimes in our language as we talk about new populations, different populations, changing populations, sometimes that sounds like a conversation. Please don't put me out, Mr. President, but sometimes it sounds like a conversation from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And we're such great people and we're really well intended, but it means we've got to stop, all of us, to a person. We have to stop and listen to people in our communities, and to hear people say, these are the spaces we need, and this is what it requires to really redesign our institution in a way that may be radically different. We talk a lot about it by way of technology, but not in ways around some of these new populations. And that's a radically different way of doing business, perhaps, than any of us have seen. And understanding a population and valuing it are very, very different. So I just offer that for our consideration.
Yeah, no, here. You know, and I think I think you just put a really deep meaning to some of the words that are on paper, but now you've called us to really examine what that means. And the issue of understanding the market, meaning living with them, getting inside their lives, understanding their barriers, and that's a lot different thing than writing it on a wall or in a strategic plan. And not that anybody in here intends to do that, but you've called us to action and you did it very effectively. Thank you. Anybody else that's got to affect this list? Because time-wise, what I want to do is ask Sheila if we can. We're going to run down what we have. You guys, each of you that were in your groups, and those of you who heard all these reports, run down the list. Tell me, is there something that's on this list that doesn't belong there? And have we accurately, carried forth the intention of all these reports here, but skinnied it down by duplication? Fair enough? So Sheila, tell us what we got.
So first, we have a list of enablers. And in my mind, these are almost the hows. So these are the things that have to happen regardless of what we do over here to make these things successful. So we have to have technological implications, we have data, globalization, and professional development. So whatever the specific is, this has to be a piece of how we implement that. So that being said, then the critical factors we have so far are developing pathways via partnerships, that's defining what they are, understanding the market, which includes both adults and unique populations. I have the valuing separate over here that you were just talking about, Kenya. Allocation and prioritization of resources. The second take on pathways, so the first semester pathway engagement individual plan for students, so not just defining them, making sure they get into them and are successful in them. Closing achievement gaps, leveraging the classroom, which keeps taking on many different contexts, so we'll talk about that later. Scale, competency-based learning, equity issues, building off what Joe said, community collaboration, which would include not just understanding but valuing those communities, a universal student experience that then include add-ons for unique population needs, which gets at achievement gaps, as well as value added in terms of then how you would talk to students about what they could expect, an experience they could expect if they came to Harper. So that's the current list.
How'd we do, guys? I think actually, yeah, go ahead, sir. We're going to get you a mic. Thanks, Kathy.
There's one enabler that did not make it on the list.
Go ahead.
It's on B. It was referring to culture. So one enabler that's missing is institutional culture. Dr. Grisma asked a question yesterday whether does your institution have a culture of innovation?
Yep.
And then there are other cultures, such as cultures of inclusion. And then on B, there's a culture of commitment.
Okay. Yes, sir. Where we got right behind you, Dr. Sam.
It's a suggestion that as you go forward, you take a look at the lessons from the Aspen Prize for community colleges and the themes characterizing the institutions that achieve exceptional outcome for students, the 5 themes, that we keep an eye on that. We benchmark whatever, because if your goal, aspiration is to be at that level, then we have to benchmark whatever we do here with the institutions that are way ahead of all of us.
So I think that maybe what he's suggesting, the doctor's suggesting, is it may not alter this list, but the asterisk of it is keep your eye on the outcomes. If in fact you aspire to be there, then understand what they measure. Does that make sense? Am I recapturing your statement the right way? Yes, ma'am. We've only got a few more minutes, so let me test this list for me. If we're missing anything we need to know.
For the community collaboration and pathway partnerships and the market, we're not bringing in our end people, our employers, and they would be vital in all of those components.
Employer engagement had been on the list that I heard from you guys that I told you at midpoint. You're right. Does that belong there, or did we otherwise reflect it? That's partnerships, is it not? That's partnerships, he says, is it not?
We've got partnerships along pathways. I also wonder, is partnerships an enabler? So any of these factors might, where appropriate, might be done in partner, right?
Okay, so I think what we're saying is that in the word partnership, we're implying employer engagement, but good check, good check. Anything else? No, I'm going to give you a minute to study it because it's important. I mean, you're going to bring your tacit knowledge and your opinions into your breakout rooms anyway, but this is going to be, what's going to happen here is that staff is going to distill this, give it to you in the afternoon. You're going to take it into your conversations and continue to work with it. So I just want to make sure that people are comfortable with what we've done. Anybody else have anything that they think either we missed or particularly anything that's on the list that should be stricken from it? Going once. Yeah.
I still don't see student engagement or anything that's up there. So I would advocate for student engagement.
So again, he doesn't have a mic. He said he still is feeling uncomfortable that student engagement isn't reflected in anything on the list, and he would advocate for its inclusion.
What about where it says first semester pathway engagement?
Yeah, what about where it says first semester pathway engagement?
That one narrow.
Yeah, that's not enough for him. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and do it unless somebody has an exception. By the way, where we are, because frankly, why not? I mean, if it's important to the conversation, put it on the list. I mean, all right, we're not getting graded on this, guys, right? It's not going to affect your credentials in any way, shape, or form. We are now down to about, as I counted, and I'm no math major, as you now know, 12 or 13 items that seem to, at least based on your response here, represent fairly the 30 that you all put on these papers. If anybody considers that we don't have this by consensus, speak now. Nobody's getting, you could still bring things up in the afternoon. All this is your marching orders. Is it fair? Are we good? Sometimes silence means yes. Sometimes silence means no. What does it mean this time? By acclamation, they're good? Okay. Good. Sheila, thank you for jumping in and helping with that. Very much appreciated. She is true leadership material, and she demonstrates it all the time. Okay. So here's what's going to happen, and in a minute, I just want to kind of tell you what's going to happen in the afternoon, and then we're going to actually break a few minutes early. So the break time we took away from you will add to your lunchtime, I think. But I'm going to also invite Ken to make a closing comment before we leave the room. So, you know, what's happened here is that we've got these critical success factors represented on that list. We'll get them to you. For those of you who are externals to the room so that you understand, we are going to go ahead and move these, working with the staff, to design and develop our strategic directions and our goal themes. When they come out of this group, working group, the Harper leaders that are in the room here between the rest of today and tomorrow, they'll come out and they're going to be vetted more widely within the community at Harper and with you guys. And then they'll be refined by staff into the final recommendations that will go to the president and the board of trustees to shape the foundations of the 5-year strategic plan. That's what the folks that are from Harper that are going to stay with us here after lunch are going to be doing. So for the benefit of those of you, those externals that have stayed with us, as they say, run through the tape, on behalf of the college and the community of the college, thank you guys for your insights. For those of you inside the institution, these guys are going to be leaving us after lunch or as we go to lunch, so please make a special point of acknowledging their involvement and their time and talent with us. We appreciate that. And know that the efforts you've all dedicated to this, together with those folks from within the college, are going to find their way through the work that we do in the afternoon and tomorrow morning. So when we leave here, we'll be going to lunch. Lunch will be served from 12:30 to 1:30, and we will start right back here at 1:30, regroup with our agenda and the activities in the afternoon. So that much said, Ken, would you like to close us up for the morning?
I would, and just one thing that I just on the fly have changed, Rick, so you did exactly as scripted by Sheila. There may be a number of you, board members, David, others, who would be interested in hearing the presentation, Completion by Design, that's coming to us from our North Carolina colleagues right after lunch. If you'd like to stay and hear that presentation, that absolutely, if your schedule permits, love for you to do that. Particularly board members, you might help us as we think forward. Just any more knowledge you have of that program could potentially be helpful. Second, I'm told lunch is available right now, so you can go right to lunch. And third, if our external colleagues decide to leave us after lunch, on behalf of all of my mates, I really can't tell you how much we appreciate you giving your time and your thoughts. We will vet very thoroughly whatever we develop over the next 24 hours with you in a very process-oriented way. There'll be a long, as we typically do things, we'll look at it for a couple months together with you before we are ready to say these are the strategic directions and these are the goals. So you're going to have lots of opportunity to take a look at this. Again, thank you so much, and have a safe travel home when you go. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you all. We'll see you back here at 1:30 sharp. Thanks, guys. Well done.